one foundation thing is have the two of you had a conversation about how they prefer to get feedback. Mm-hmm. And that can be one of the most helpful and powerful things to do, which is to sit down and talk about, hey, what makes you feel appreciated? Because some people need to hear the words. Other people don't really care about the words. But the fact that you come to them for advice with some of your toughest problems, or you would like their input on your proofreading, tells them they're valued, right? Mm-hmm. So what makes you feel appreciated? If I have coaching for you, what's your advice to me on when and how to give it? Do you have pet peeves about feedback generally? We all have pet peeves. That's a really interesting conversation to have. Mm-hmm. When you're triggered by feedback, how can I tell? How will I be able to tell? And might be totally obvious, but sometimes people shut down. And I can't tell whether you're taking it in or arguing in your head. And when you are triggered or feeling defensive, what advice do you have for me on what will help? And we have a little template that's like how to get the best out of me, that each of us can jot down some thoughts too, and then talk about.
How to get the best out of me. Is that a template that is available online or that we could put in the show notes?
Yeah, on the Triad Consulting website, triadconsultinggroup.com. We have a nav called Help Yourself. And it's got a bunch of templates, exercises, etc.
Great.
So
we'll link to that.
Just having that conversation up front means I don't have to guess at how to give you feedback because you've already told me, and hopefully I've taken some notes, which I keep handy to remind myself. And so I can refer back like, hey, I had a couple of thoughts about the presentation last week, and I wonder when it would be helpful to chat about it a little bit or whatever, right? The second thing is that really the fastest way to change a feedback culture and to help people be more receptive is to become a good receiver yourself and be soliciting and eliciting feedback from others, and to assume every conversation, even when I think I'm pretty clearly the giver here, I'm probably going to end up being a receiver. Because what they're going to say is, well, the reason I did that is because you were so unclear about what you wanted or whatever. So I have to assume there are things I've contributed to the situation that are going to be part of the conversation, even when, for me, the primary purpose is to tell you what I think you could do differently or better. There's a question that we use a lot that I think is incredibly helpful just in building a habit of integrating feedback into daily life, which is not, hey, do you have any feedback for me? Which we've talked about as a terrible question, well-intended, but terrible. Particularly from a leader, because giving feedback up feels very risky and fraught. So if you are in a position of leadership, you are impacting more and more people, and fewer of them are going to take the chance to tell you about it. So you've got to actually have some pretty advanced skills in receiving feedback and inviting it. And one way you can do that is to ask, what's one thing? What's one thing that I'm doing or maybe failing to do that you think is getting in the way? Or what's one thing that if I could change it would make a difference to you? Or what's one thing that in our Monday morning meeting we could change to make it more efficient? Because I know people are flagging, their energy's flagging. That's a question that you can toss off while you're walking down the hall and lowers the stakes. It's very clear you're asking for coaching. You're looking for something to improve. And you're also signaling, and by the way, I expect you to be receptive to coaching also, because I'm going to demonstrate I value it. I assume I'm still learning, and I expect that you're still learning too.